I spent last week watching the four-part series debate between Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris about the existence of God or the advantages of religion. I don't remember exactly what it's called by title on YouTube. I know the first two took place, there's 4 episodes, each one was like 2.5 hours apiece. So it's like 8 hours of talking or something silly. And their first two were in Vancouver, and then there was like Dublin, and then something else. You'll find them pretty quickly. The thumbnail is a black and red background with Peterson and Sam Harris. And I'm going to pretend you already know who those people are. You can Google them if you don't. What I didn't like about that whole debate, it was really interesting. There's a lot of great points brought up. Sam Harris, I'm not all that familiar with him, but I thought he was super respectful. He was he was a really cool guy. I've seen a few of his other podcasts here and there, but I really like him. I really respect him. What I was disappointed by in the entire exchange for like all fucking 8 hours was that, like, Jordan, I really think he first off, the whole thing would have been over much sooner had either one of them jumped into the idea that fundamentalism is a thing, okay? Neither one of them wanted to acknowledge this. Sam's attack on religion was any religion, any belief system of morality that is rooted in something other than the material world or observable empirical evidence is somehow inherently flawed to devolve into fundamentalism at some point, and then fundamentalism devolves further into violence. I agree with him that fundamentalism dissolves into violence, but just having something rooted in metaphysics does not automatically lead to fundamentalism. You've got things like the Catholic Church, which is ready to reason with reality. Even the Orthodox Jews, they had Maimonides. God, I always mess up his name. Maimonides. You can, try to reconcile the real world with the metaphysical explanations, and I'll get back to that in a second. But it really, really disappointed me. Like, I can see where Sam gets that from, especially when you have evangelicals running the Republican Party for the last 30 years, and radical Islam flying planes into buildings and bombing bus stations and all that jazz. Like, fundamentalism is terrible things. They're readily observable. But I'm going to say Sam's on the outside because he's not a religious person. Jordan is more on the inside. He should have been the first one to say, I was waiting all fucking 8 or 12 hours of my life for Jordan to just say, oh, but those are the fundamentalist Christians. Christianity or any religion does not, by necessity, need to fall down the slippery slope into fundamentalism. It just doesn't have to. There can be this rational discourse that, grounds it in reality. Like, just the whole friggin' thing about, like, what sets these three monotheistic religions apart from other, pantheons is that they're grounded in reality. They have roots that say they took place right here. I mean, granted, Hercules did his trials at the Rock of Gibraltar. Okay, fine. But nothing quite like that relationship with Israel, Like, it takes place right here, in Galilee, in Nazareth, in Bethlehem, in the Dead Sea, in the Red Sea, in Egypt. Like, it's fucking all over that area. And others just don't do that. Like, there was never, even within Buddhism and all that stuff, like, it's like, well, here's this mountain we're pretty sure Buddha went and touched. And anyway, that's what people say. Like, I don't think it's not the same thing. And I'm hoping you kind of see where I'm setting it at. It's not that grounded in real-ass places or a real relationship with people on the ground, And that's part of why it's so, what sets Christianity, at least, and Judaism apart. I'm not sure how much I can say from... Well, no, okay, the same flaws apply in Christianity and Islam that they fall to fundamentalism, which is Sam's argument. Or parts of them did. Portions of their populations did. And I agree that that's flawed, but the mainline establishment of Judaism and Christianity, and I don't know much about Islam, but I'll bet you there is the grounded rational part of Islam that says, we can. It doesn't have to come down to radical fundamentalism. That's all I'm saying. And to me, I wish they would have dug into that concept, and I'm really surprised that Jordan didn't bring it up. But Sam could have too. He ought to recognize that there's a difference between Catholics, general Protestants, and evangelical fundamentalists that believe in flat Earth and creationism. Like, there's a big fucking difference. The other thing that I thought that Jordan should have brought up to dig into Sam, and Jordan was kind of was grasping at this. He was grasping at straws. He kept tickling this idea for a long time and never really got a hold on it. Was the idea that Sam has really dedicated his life to trying to create whole cloth a morality that is a humanism that is grounded in empirical observation and history and psychology and blah blah blah, wherein everybody can just get along, and I don't know, like he wants to build this utopian belief system, I guess. And that's great. More power to him. I think he's a really good guy. I think it's a really worthy goal to have. I totally support him in this. But Jordan is skeptical, and so am I. And the point that Jordan dances around a lot, and I'm surprised that Jordan couldn't just nail this, because it's something that's so core to the Catholic Church, is the relationship with the truth itself. I'm assuming you've seen a lot of Jordan shit, like especially his biblical series. If you haven't seen that, try to sit through as much of it as you can. I'll admit I'm only on episode like 5 or 6 at this point, but the whole idea that like over thousands and thousands of years of human civilization that is all prehistory, observing each other as humans has led us to recognize truths that become eternal, generation to generation, place to place, and they say that they start to give these things personifications because they're trying to wrap their heads around a metaphysical concept that is abstract and very true, but not something they had the linguistic capacity to nail down in technical terms. So they would transmit it through allegory and metaphor and story that is easier to encode these truths and these morals in, and they are true because they were like you again. Just fucking watch the Cain and Abel or Adam and Eve episodes of Jordan Peterson's biblical series. Like, fucking so much depth and so much truth about how people treat each other and what our role is in nature. Like, you can't throw this shit out. It's not garbage. It's really, really true stuff that's more true than anything we ever wrote down or broke down in a scientific theory. But just the people that lived in the time that they figured this out did not have the linguistic history and complexity to write this kind of psychological shit out. We didn't even develop this kind of terminology until fucking Sigmund Freud. It's only been like 150 years. So, my point is that, so the relationship with the truth, okay? So what Jordan was saying was that this collection of truths comes together, and then the people are looking for the one uber truth, and they're going to identify that as God. It's this a set of morals, but really more like just observation of truths, and it's the source of all their ordered existence. And if you live your life in a way that has a relationship with it, through, say, religion, like rituals, like attending a service every week, and doing your prayers every day, and other parts of your life, like, baptism, circumcision, whatever, marriage and funerals and all that kind of jazz, that bakes into your life that truth. You always remember it at all times, because every day you're having a reminder. This is the critical flaw in Sam's approach, okay? Is that as much as his moral code is probably going to be great in the end, and I'll probably disagree with this one anyway, but that's nitpicky. The point is, if he does not, nobody would want to follow that code. And by that I mean, even if they look at it and they say, Sam, that's the truth, that is beautiful, I love where this could lead, I'm going to practice this. Fuck, I'm so inspired, I'm going to buy Sam Harris's book and I'm going to live by it. How many times have you bought a book and decided, oh, I'm going to live by this, and within 5 years, maybe 10 years, it wears off, and you're on to a new phase of life, and just fucking you outgrew it. Or something else moved in that you thought was more interesting. Like, this is life. Like, we can only be inspired for so long, you know? And it's like, it doesn't matter if Sam's got the greatest fucking policy for, you know, a moral code on earth ever created that the whole world agrees on. Fucking rad. But what Jordan Peterson tickles at is that it can only be enforced through an authoritarian law, which is what leads to Jordan's slippery slope argument. Fundamentalism of a atheist moral code is going to lead to enforcement by the government, which leads to gulags and mass murder. That's not good. And but that's exactly it. Is if you don't have this metaphysical concept of, like, you know, at least a God that's watching over you and checking, you know, your every move and everything. But more importantly, you build a relationship with that God. Okay, so this is the thing, right? A lot of people have this misconception that, because they've watched too much anime, they think that the God thrives off of the prayers of its people, and if the people quit believing in him, then he'll stop existing. That's stupid shit. Like, piss on that. It's so garbage. Another foolish way of looking at it is that that God demands us to do these rituals or he's going to get pissed off at us. Which is kind of, I mean, I guess that's true, you know, keep the Lord's Day holy and all that. But what you don't realize is that's more of like a eat your vegetables rule. Like, you tell your kids, eat your fucking vegetables or, you know, you're going to get in trouble. But you do that because that's what's good for them. They need to build a habit of eating their greens so that they can shit properly in their teenage years. Like, this is not just because you're a ruthless tyrant of a parent. It's because they actually need to eat their vegetables. It's good for them. This is proper health. And so it's like proper spiritual health comes from going to Mass every week and getting baptized and getting married in the church. Like, fuck the state. I don't care what the state has no fucking concept of what marriage is in the first place. We'll get back to this later, but marriage has been wrecked in the civic culture, and it's bullshit to begin with. And when I got married, I almost forgot to register with the state because it didn't matter to me at all. That was fucking weak. It was getting married in the church that mattered to me because I needed that exercise to eat those spiritual vegetables to make sure that I was in relationship with God. That was important to me because I've been going to church my whole life, because I did get baptized, because I've been taking communion, because when I fucked up, I went to confession. I passed on communion until I could get to confession and then did my penance. This whole relationship I've had with God my whole life is why I can keep trying to live up to this moral code, even if I continue to fuck it up. As opposed to, you ever been on Weight Watchers? It's the best diet plan in the world. Hell, they revise it every couple of years. And they always got new takers. Because nobody can keep that shit up. Because tracking your points and watching what you eat, you can make it a ritual. But if you don't, and you know, that's why they make you go to the meetings, man. So you can be held accountable to your peers. So that you can confess your sins of eating cookies. If you don't have that relationship with the truth, it doesn't matter how good that truth is. Sorry, Sam Harris. That's the flaw in your argument. I'm so disappointed Jordan didn't bring this up. It's that personal relationship with the truth that has to be otherworldly and watching you at all times and built into a culture. Like, you need to literally be married to this code. Like, dedicated your life to this code. Or else you don't care. It's gonna wear off, no matter how enthusiastic you are. The only person who's married to Sam's code right now is Sam. He can write that book, but dude, he's the high priest. He's the only person who has consecrated himself to his moral code. Unless he charges people with promoting his code and makes them priests of his new religion, and then holds a service every week to get around and read his moral code like it's the Bible. Like He needs that religion, or else no one's going to give a shit. I don't care how great his moral code is. No one will. Even if they get amped about it, good luck holding that for longer than 3 to 5 years. Period. That's the weakness in Sam's argument. And I wish Jordan would have just hit that, because he should have known it better than anybody else. Personal relationship with the truth, with God. That's why religion is potent, okay? Because you build it every day, and you end up earning it. You eat your vegetables when you're a kid because your parents told you to. When you're old, you eat your vegetables because you don't want to get fat, die, get cancer. I don't mean broccoli's going to give you cancer anyway, but you know what I mean? Like, fucking, you end up taking care of yourself. Who in their right mind is going to eat goddamn quinoa? Ugh. Shit is like cardboard flakes. So, moving on.